The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Although golf is a low-impact sport, it's associated with several injuries. Many golf-related injuries are a result of poor mechanics or overuse. The most commonly injured area is the lower back. Other injured areas can include the elbow, the wrist, the hand, and the shoulder. And with regard to pickleball-related injuries have been on the rise, with an estimated 19,000 pickleball injuries occurring each year. I want to welcome to my show two people, one of whom is Scott Miller, a person who's been on the show a lot, and I know that he can answer some of the questions that our guest today, Debra Rosmarin, a real estate agent who absolutely loves the sport of pickleball and golf and is great at it, is going to be able to learn a lot from Scott. So welcome, guys, to the Susan Brender Show. It's just a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Susan, for having me on. As always, it's a pleasure being on your show and just helping out your guests and giving my knowledge of injuries and physical therapy.
Well, let's start with that, Scott. We talk about proper posture. Is that important for a person's adjusting to their swing?
Absolutely. Posture and proper mechanics is essential for overall body health. So depending on if you're a newcomer to a sport or you've been playing something for years, your body goes through lots of changes throughout the years. So things constantly need to be adjusted and corrected in order for you to stay injury free, mobile and strong. And even equipment needs to be changed throughout your playing days to accommodate for changes in strength and range of motion and just overall ability.
Something, Debra, you've been playing a long time. Have you ever had any injuries as a result of golf?
As far as golf, well, you're going to laugh. I have, not because of golf, but I have 3 hip replacements and a knee replacement. But that's just from my years of dancing and other things. And I've compensated when I'm about to have years ago when I was about to have a replacement, I had to compensate my swing so that I wouldn't turn on that hip and then had to relearn how to turn properly because there is a mechanic and, like Scott said, how to go through the swing. So, as you get older, I see other people that have injuries and you see how they compensate. Their arm isn't straight or their wrists aren't swinging, very important. And when you're with playing with people that are younger and they have no injuries, boy, they're very fluid.
Yeah. And Scott, when you hear what she has to say about her swing in golf and the injuries that could be caused, what do you say about that?
Well, every single golfer, or if you play pickleball, everybody's a little bit different. And, like she said, things, sometimes your mechanics have to change based on specific limitations that you may have with hip or knee pain. And sometimes, you can play pain-free round of golf, even if you have limitations in your knees or your hips or your back, and just some basic modifications can sometimes be made so that you can continue playing the sports that you love.
Yeah. Something, Debra, when you're on the golf course, most of the people who are playing are baby boomers. Am I correct about that?
Well, I'm in somewhat. Yeah, there's generally my age, but I also play. I'll just make it tee time on my own. If I'm not in a league, and then it's kind of mixed players, but yeah, most of them are my age or older, and yeah, I'm lucky they can walk.
That's right, and that's why I was going to ask Scott. It seems that golf is becoming a sport for baby boomers alone, and young people are not playing anymore. Why is that, in your opinion?
Well, actually, I don't completely agree with that statement. You know, we have a lot of young athletes, even as young as 10 years old that are picking up the sport of golf and being very highly competitive at a very young age. I think the high schools are starting to it's becoming more and more popular in high school and in college, and there's quite a few people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that are playing golf as well. But it may not be as prevalent in that age group, just based on our maybe the schedule, and maybe we're not at the retired age yet, so that a lot of it is time consuming. But I think that it still is a very popular sport in all age.
Yeah. And Deborah, the power of a golf swing comes from the force transferred smooth through all the muscle groups from your ankles to your wrists. Do you feel when you're playing that it's touching in a way your ankles and your wrists to cause any problems?
It's more about getting your hips through. That's really the swing. You've got to get your hips through, and that's where you get all the pressure at ankles, legs. If you have a bad knee, of course that's going to interfere, but it's really about getting the hips through and the swing speed, doing it in a mechanical, in the right, how do I even say it, just smoothly through, effortless. That's the word I want to use, effortless.
Right. And for you, it is effortless?
At times, sure. That's when you're in the zone. Sure. In any sport, you're in a zone where you're like, wow, I just hit every shot today. Same in pickleball, when you're in the zone, you're there.
Yeah. Now, you heard me say that pickleball related injuries have been on the rise, from estimated 19,000 pickleball injuries occurring each year. Scott, you and I talked about pickleball before, but is it true that it's on the rise, and especially here in Florida?
Well, of course it's on the rise, and the reason it's on the rise is because it's one of the fastest growing sports in the country right now. So, as the number of people are playing the sport, you're going to have increased number of injuries. So if a small number of people are playing, you're going to have a small number of injuries. So just like any other new sport or new activity, you have each month it's exponential how many new pickleball players there are. So you're of course going to see more injuries just because of the increase of the amount of players.
I mean, Scott, I've heard the most horrendous situations with regard to pickleball. They say that people hurt themselves all the time. Even some people I've heard have died. Now, why would they want to play a game like pickleball if it's so dangerous?
Well, I wouldn't really say that the pickleball sport itself is dangerous. It most likely is the exercise for someone who has been very sedentary and out of shape and weak, and maybe are not cardiovascularly cleared for the intensity of that sport, might be injuring them or causing them a great injury, or in the case that you're saying, in death. And that's just because of the physical shape that they might be in, or the lack of movements and activity that they did prior to playing pickleball.
Scott, when somebody comes to you who has all these different side effects, such as the posture and the possibility of spine-related straight injuries, what do you say to them with regard to playing the game?
Well, first I'm going to see when they're primarily having their symptoms, and two, I'm going to find out what their prior level of activity was, and then three, I'm going to see what their current level of activity is. And a lot of times you really just need to be straight with them, and you have to modify their activity level, and you have to kind of get them to slowly and gradually get back into the level of activity that they want when their body is ready, and get them on the right stretching program and exercise program so that the body can withstand, this much movement that they have not been doing in probably years. So,
if they feel better and they tell you, I feel better, do you say to them, you know what? You better continue doing what you do with me, because I think that it's possible that you can have another injury. And if you do, this is a way to really prevent it. Do you say that to them?
Yeah, well, we try to educate the patients on what needs to be done when they're, when they're hurting or when they have increased symptoms. We try to get them on a good program so that we can prevent these injuries from occurring. And of course, we try to set them up on a, maybe a little modification of the activity level that they were doing, so that if they were, come in and they say, my back hurts and I went from never playing pickleball to I love this sport and I'm playing 5 days a week, we take a step back and we're saying, all right, well, your body is not used to this and it needs a day off. So, we try to get them to get back to playing, but maybe taking a day off so that their body can rest and heal, go through your movements and get stronger, and this way not flaring up what they're what's aggravating them.
I'll tell you, Deborah, you must have plenty of stories about your game of pickleball, or even stories of golf that you really experience.
Sure. Let me address the injury thing. It's generally, I would say, out of all those 19,000 people you were talking about, I would say that 85% of them were new players. And that's because they're not understanding the game yet. They haven't taken lessons. They just kind of get on the court, and because they were a tennis player or they were an athletic at some point, they think they can do it. And the biggest problem is when people go back for the ball, like run back, as opposed to turn their bodies and run away from it and come around. I don't know if that's making any sense, but you can't run backwards. That's the biggest misconception and what most new players do. And that's when they fall and trip.
Oh, wow. Scott, do they tell you the same thing, that they are new at what they did and it's really a very difficult sport, because before they thought it was such a simple thing, but it's not. So what do you say to them when it comes to telling them that they have to take it easy and go through it and try simply without getting right on the court and trying to be competitive?
Most injuries do come, from new players that mechanics might not be right, or they just are not ready to play at that level. And I try to, when we're trying to get them back to playing, I try to compare it to any professional athlete out there after an injury. After they go through an injury, they're not just getting right back onto the court or right onto the field playing every single day again. There's a gradual process to get their body ready to continue playing. So, you just have to be real with them. You have to, let them know that if they continue, overdoing it, their body's going to fail, and it's going to, potential risk of having a worse injury that will take them out of the game for that much longer. So you just have to, be full, honest with them and just give them the tools. All we can really do is give them the right tools and the education, and let them make that decision on their own. And if they don't, most of the time they'll be back in for more treatment.
Deborah, how related to tennis is pickleball? Because I tried it, and unfortunately, one of the things that happened to me is that I didn't realize that you have to hit the ball when it's bouncing rather than not. Am I right about that, or am I not?
No. The difference of tennis and pickleball. Tennis is a swing. Pickleball is more of a pop. So you're not taking a full swing. And that's what when tennis players come on to start the first time, they're doing this long swing. The other issue is that the ball does not bounce as high as a tennis ball. It's a wiffle ball, so it bounces low. So the time to get to the ball is very different than in tennis. And so a lot of tennis players run into the ball as opposed to letting the ball come to them, because a wiffle ball hits the ground and kind of comes at you. And a tennis ball kind of bounces straight up. So those are the major differences.
Right. And what about women as opposed to men? I always have the feeling that men are playing more of the game of golf rather than women, and the same thing with pickleball. I mean, is that right, or am I
No,
wrong?
not at all, not at all. But I will say this, a really good male pickleball player will never smash the ball into a woman, because they're better than that. The ones that are new players or ego, they just smash that ball. And I'll tell you, that wiffle ball can hurt.
I bet, I bet.
So the
And-
difference is that men are stronger. I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to sound that way. For years I fought that battle that I'm as strong as a man, but the reality is it's not true. So they're just going to strike that ball at a stronger, harder ability.
Yeah. And where do you do this? Do you do this outside, or you do this inside?
Well, there's there's inside and outside. So inside is very different. You have a basketball flooring, so it kind of is more giving. So it's easier on your body. That's a good place for people to start. But the problem with that is the lighting is very strange in most of these facilities that are indoors. The ball bounces very differently. The net is a little lower, and it's a different play. You don't have the wind, you don't have the elements, but it's a very different play. Outdoors is, the ball bounces, and you use different balls. The balls indoors have it's a wiffle ball, so you have larger holes on the ones indoors. They're called onyx. The ones outdoors, you still can play an onyx outdoors, but they're smaller holes like a Dura or a Franklin. So it's a totally different game, but you can do both. And when it's raining out, I go indoors.
You do.
Yeah, I do.
And which do you prefer?
It's funny, before the pandemic, I played indoors mostly, unless it was winter. It was winter. And now I play indoors. I'm like, I can't even see the ball because of the glare. So I play outdoors mostly. I prefer outdoors.
Yeah. And I asked you before if you would tell us a story about somebody who you played with who really was an amateur and you were a better player, and how did that go?
Well, it doesn't ever go well. Because in any sport, you want to play with someone at your level or better. In any sport, that's how you get better. So you have to be patient, which is not always the easiest thing for me. And you've got to tell them, stay back behind the line, don't move off the line, move up now, move up now. So you just work with them.
Yeah. And Scott, here are some of the things that people sustain when they play golf. It's sprains, it's hamstring strains, wrist fractures, wrist strains, and yes, even hip fractures. Do you experience that when you work with somebody that this is what happened to them?
Are you talking for golf or for pickleball?
This is for golf.
For golf, you see all different injuries. It's going to be a little bit different injuries than tennis or pickleball. It's going to be less impactful injuries. You really don't see too many fractures unless someone unless someone loses their balance and falls. In golf, it's a lot of the tendinitis type of injuries that you do see, wrist and elbow tendinitis, shoulder tendinitis. Do see a lot of back issues just because of the nature of the golf swing and the forceful impact that the golf swing does have, because it's a lot of rotation with golf. So you do see some back issues. And for some of the really, really strong golfers, some of the professional golfers, there is a lot of torque that's put through the knees. And you can certainly see some knee issues if you're a high level golfer.
Scott, I'm sure that some of the major players haven't come into your physical therapy practice. However, have you ever seen anybody who's really been very popular and they came to this with major injuries because they play so competitively?
I've seen all levels of athletes throughout my career and my practice here in Delray Beach and as a student and other places that I've worked at, and from high school athletes to working with some professional athletes and everywhere in between to your your club champion, your local club champion for golf or tennis, to, you know, amateur level athletes. So, you know, we really have seen all ranges of athletic abilities here.
You know, Deborah, when you get on the court and you're all alone and there's a young guy in front of you who wants to play, do you play with them, young people?
Of course, and they're great. They're great. They're quick learners, and they run fast. So I love when I play with someone young, because they'll run for me. They'll get the ball that's in a lob over my head. They'll be all over the court.
Yeah. And do you use one of those vehicles that they have on the courts?
What are you talking? What kind of vehicle?
Do you use a golf cart?
Oh, we're talking about golf now. Yes, most people in South Florida, I know it sounds strange, we mostly drive in carts. We don't walk so much, where in most other places in the country you walk, probably because of the heat.
Yeah, yeah. And you play in the heat, right?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, you're playing a sport, you know, it's not like I'm dressed to go out or to work with makeup and a dress on. I mean, I'm in clothes. It's okay if you start, you know, perspiring, and you just play through. A lot of women bring fans. We put fans on the cart.
Really? With fans?
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. Scott, other tips to keep you on the course? I know you might have told us already, but I think it's necessary to repeat.
Well, the biggest thing is to know your body. And, you know, if you are having pain or aches, or you're sore during play, you know, whether it's golf or pickleball, or it's really painful afterwards, you know, you got to know your body, and you got to know when to rest it and when to get it addressed. So if you are in pain, whether it's during or after, you really have to address that, and you can prevent further injury by taking care of something before it gets too late. And then the biggest thing is overall mobility. You know, it's very important to stay flexible, stay mobile, and stay loose. The more mobile you are, the less injuries that you can withstand, and of course, over time, you know, it's important to have good strength and stability, and you know, that's very important.
Scott, you produce a newsletter. Do you give tips for all different sports in the newsletter?
Every newsletter, it's, you know, we come out with something each month, you know, it's always different, you know, so it's, you know, we do have something, maybe not about every single sport out there, but, you know, there could be you know, newsletter that focuses maybe on a specific injury, and then we can go into some activities that, you know, that can cause these little injuries, or we go into certain you know, movement patterns that can improve that.
Yeah. And Deborah, do you see yourself playing for a long time now? You know, you're a baby boomer, and as you said, you love these sports, but the question becomes, how long can you continue doing it?
I will always be active. I'm a certified Iyengar yoga instructor. So from years ago. So I always do yoga right before, you know, I do yoga. I do my stretches before I play in any sport, golf, because golf is very repetitive, as Scott was saying, and that's the same thing on those same muscles. So you have to balance that out and use your other side. So I also recommend to people to do yoga, as I'm sure Scott does as well, and then go see Scott.
That's right. That's right. This is the thing. For about 2 years, we lived in a chaotic time, and that was because of the virus. Now, did you get out? And if you did you really socialize with a lot of people? And is that what you love to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the one thing that was good about golf during the pandemic. Pretty much everyone was still playing golf. There was new restrictions. You had your own cart, but you still got out to play golf. But as far as socializing, pickleball is the most social sport I've ever played. And when I think about it, I don't know another sport that's as social, meaning when other people are playing on the court, you're on the sidelines with all these people waiting to play, and you're conversing with them. Hey, how you doing? What are you doing? Where you're from? What else you do? And you're really meeting people. It's not a hush hush quiet sport. Even tennis, you can't do that. You don't see people on the sidelines making conversation. In golf, you're in with the group that you're playing with, maybe 3 other people, maybe 2 other people. So you might meet them, but it's still a quiet sport. You're not going to have a lot of conversation. Everyone wants to be quiet when they're swinging at the ball. But pickleball is so social, and it's a great way to meet people.
Well, that sounds great. And I'll tell you something, for our audience, if they listen to you, they are going to be so desirous of playing that you're going to turn the 90,000 people into 400,000, because
you know what else is, a lot of families play. I see it now, bringing younger kids in, bringing their kids in, and they're playing with the kids, and then the kids are intermingling with other people. So it's really a sport for everybody.
So I thank you very much, Debra, for telling the people how much you love it, because when you love a sport, there's nothing better. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, if people want to get in touch with you, Debra, how do they do that? And Scott, the same thing, but let's start with you, Debra.
Okay. My cell is 305-710-2127. My home is 561-292-3394. And my email is Debra@realestate-florida.com.
What about you, Scott? If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
My physical therapy practice is in Delray Beach, and it's Miller Physical Therapy. You can Google us, and you can go right to our website, and there's a plethora of information about all different injuries and articles on that website. And there's a way to directly contact me via the website, and that email, contact email on there comes right to me, or you can call the office number on that on the website. And that you can speak directly to me as well. And the website is Miller-PT.com. So it's Miller-PT for physical therapy.com. And you can certainly check me out on there.
Well, I want to thank both Debra Rosmarin and Scott Miller for being on the Susan Brender Show. It sure has been a pleasure, and also an education for people who love sports, particularly golf and, of course, pickleball, the newest sport around. So thanks again for being on my show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sue, for having me on your show again. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to the next show.